The wind cut across Arlington National Cemetery like a blade, sharp enough to slice through the heavy wool of Margaret Harrington's coat. She stood rigid beside the freshly carved headstone, her silver hair pinned in a flawless chignon that refused to yield even a strand to the gusts. The arrow someone had crudely photoshopped onto the viral image pointed at her like an accusation, but in the flesh there was no arrow, only the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes that had already judged her from their screens. Across from her, clutching a squirming 2-year-old in a crimson dress, stood Kayla Collins. The child's name was Lily, though the internet had already forgotten that detail in favor of memes and hot takes. Kayla's face was blotchy from crying, her dark hair escaping its ponytail in frizzed wisps. She held Lily so tightly the toddler's teddy bear was crushed between them, its button eye dangling by a thread. Margaret's gaze flicked to the headstone. Ethan Collins. The letters looked too new, too white against the gray November sky. 28 years old. Died in Kandahar. The official report said friendly fire. The unofficial one, the one that had blown up on every platform from TikTok to X, said Margaret's signature sat at the bottom of the order that put Ethan's unit in the wrong place at the wrong time. Say it, Kayla whispered. Her voice cracked like thin ice. Say you're sorry. Margaret's lips pressed into a line. She had practiced this moment in the mirror of her Georgetown townhouse, in the back of her Senate limo, in the sterile quiet of her office where portraits of past presidents stared down in silent judgment. None of the rehearsals prepared her for the raw smell of turned earth or the way Lily's tiny fingers clutched her mother's collar as if Margaret herself might snatch the child away. I am sorry, Margaret said. The words came out flat, rehearsed. Kayla flinched anyway. Sorry doesn't bring him back. Kayla's arms tightened around Lily. Sorry doesn't explain why my husband is in that box instead of reading bedtime stories. Margaret's driver waited at the curb, engine idling. Protocol said she should leave after 5 minutes, enough for the photographers to get their shots, enough for the statement her press secretary had already emailed to every major outlet. But the photographers were gone, chased off by cemetery security after the first wave of viral outrage. Now it was just the three of them and the rows of white markers stretching into the mist like an endless accusation. Lily wriggled free and toddled toward the headstone. Kayla lunged to catch her, but the child was already there, pressing her palm against the cold marble. Dada, she said, the word muffled by the pacifier she'd spat out somewhere in the grass. Margaret felt something fracture behind her ribs. She had grandchildren. 3, all polished and private schooled, their photos carefully curated for campaign mailers. None of them had ever touched a grave. Kayla knelt, scooping Lily up again. We're done here. She turned to go, then stopped. You know what the worst part is? Ethan voted for you. He had your sticker on his truck. Said you understood sacrifice. The wind carried the words back to Margaret like shrapnel. She watched Kayla walk away, the red dress a slash of color against the monochrome field. The driver opened the back door of the black SUV. Margaret didn't move. Ma'am. His voice was hesitant. We should go. The motorcade's holding traffic on 110. She raised a gloved hand. Wait. Kayla was halfway to the path when Lily twisted violently, nearly throwing them both off balance. Down. The toddler demanded. Kayla set her on the grass. Lily marched straight back to Margaret, teddy bear dragging behind her. The child stopped at Margaret's polished pumps and looked up. Her eyes were the exact shade of Ethan's, hazel shot through with gold. Margaret had seen those eyes in briefing photos, in the casualty report that crossed her desk at 2:17 a.m. 6 weeks ago. Lily held out the bear. Its fur was matted with cemetery dirt. Hug, she said imperiously. Margaret stared at the offering. The bear's ear was torn, stuffing peeking through like a wound. She glanced at Kayla, who had frozen mid-step, tears tracking fresh paths down her cheeks. Slowly, Margaret crouched. Her knees protested the arthritis she refused to acknowledge. She took the bear. It was lighter than expected, as if grief had hollowed it out. "Thank you," Margaret said. Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears. Lily nodded, satisfied, and toddled back to her mother. Kayla didn't move to intercept her this time. She was watching Margaret with something that might have been hope or might have been hatred, impossible to tell through the tears. Margaret stood. The bear dangled from her fingers. She should give it back. Instead, she tucked it inside her coat, against the silk lining where her heart beat too fast. "I read his letters," she said suddenly. Kayla's head snapped up. The ones he sent from deployment. They were in the file. Kayla's mouth opened, closed. "You had no right. He wrote about you. About Lily learning to walk in the backyard. About the dog you adopted from the shelter, the one that chewed his dress blues." Margaret's throat worked. "He said you made him believe in second chances." Kayla made a sound like a sob caught in her chest. Lily, oblivious, had discovered a dandelion and was trying to blow its seeds into the wind. "I signed the order," Margaret continued. "But I didn't know his name until the notification came across my desk. There were 47 others that night. 47 families who." She stopped. The numbers felt obscene in the open air. Kayla's hands clenched at her sides. 47. You say it like it's a quarterly report. Margaret looked at the headstone again. Ethan Collins. Beloved husband and father. The inscription had been Kayla's choice. Margaret had seen the email chain between the casualty assistance officer and the widow. She had forwarded it to her chief of staff with the note, "Ensure expedited processing." "I can't undo it," Margaret said. "But I can make sure the investigation is thorough. Transparent. If there was negligence, there was negligence." Kayla's voice cracked across the rows of graves. A groundskeeper in the distance looked up, then away. "They told us the coordinates were verified. They told us. I know what they told you." Margaret's own voice sharpened, the senator emerging despite herself. "I've read every transcript. The drone operator thought he saw movement." The row allowed. "Stop." Kayla held up a hand. "Just stop. I don't want your briefing. I want my husband." Lily had wandered back. She tugged at Margaret's coat. Up. Without thinking, Margaret bent and lifted the child. Lily was heavier than she looked, solid with the weight of a future Ethan would never see. She smelled like baby shampoo and the metallic tang of cemetery air. Her small hand patted Margaret's cheek, leaving a streak of dirt. Kayla watched them, something unreadable shifting across her face. "She doesn't understand," she said quietly. "She thinks everyone's her friend." Margaret adjusted her grip on Lily, careful of the child's dress. "My daughter used to do that. Pat my face when I came home late from session. She'd fall asleep on my shoulder during C-SPAN." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "You have a daughter, too. And a son. They're estranged." The admission slipped out before Margaret could stop it. She never spoke of her children in public. Their absence from campaign events was a carefully cultivated mystery. Kayla looked at Lily in Margaret's arms, then at the headstone. "Ethan wanted 4. Said he'd coach Little League and teach them to fish. We were going to buy a house in Fredericksburg. Fixer-upper with a big yard." Margaret felt the bear against her ribs, its torn ear scratching the silk. "I have a house," she said. "In Fredericksburg. My husband and I bought it before he passed. It's been empty for years." Kayla's laugh was bitter. "What? You're offering me a house now? Payment for services rendered?" "No." Margaret shifted Lily's weight. The child had discovered her pearl earring and was trying to unscrew it. "I'm offering. I don't know what I'm offering. A place to scream where no one will hear." Where Lily can run without tripping over headstones. Kayla stared at her. The wind whipped between them, carrying the distant sound of taps from another funeral. Lily yawned, her head dropping to Margaret's shoulder. You think a house fixes this? Kayla asked. No, but it's a start. Kayla took a step closer. Up close, Margaret could see the exhaustion etched into her face, the kind that no concealer could hide. Why are you doing this? The optics. Clear your conscience before the midterms. Margaret considered the question. Her press secretary would have a stroke. Her donors would demand explanations. The viral photo with the arrow would mutate into something worse. Because I'm tired, she said finally. Tired of briefings and talking points. Tired of pretending I don't see their faces when I sign my name. Kayla studied her for a long moment. Then she reached out, not for Lily, but for the bear peeking from Margaret's coat pocket. Her fingers brushed Margaret's as she took it back. Lily needs her bear, she said. And I need to go home. Whatever home is now. Margaret set Lily down gently. The child immediately attached herself to Kayla's leg, bear clutched to her chest. Kayla looked at the headstone one last time, then at Margaret. The investigation, she said. Make it hurt. Whoever screwed up. Make them feel this. She pressed a hand to her chest, over her heart. I will, Margaret promised. And for the first time in years, she meant it with her whole self. Kayla turned to leave. After 3 steps, she paused. The house in Fredericksburg. Does it have a porch? Yes. Wraparound. Needs painting. Kayla nodded once, a sharp jerk of her chin. Then she walked away, Lily's red dress the only color in a world gone gray. Margaret stood alone as the mist thickened into rain. The driver approached with an umbrella, but she waved him off. She stayed until the headstone blurred, until the words Ethan Collins were just shapes in the downpour. When she finally climbed into the SUV, the bear was gone, but its weight remained, pressed against her heart like a promise or a wound. The driver closed the door. Where to, Senator? She looked out at the rows of white markers, each one a name she hadn't known until it was too late. Fredericksburg, she said. I have a house that needs painting. The SUV pulled away, tires hissing on wet pavement. Behind them, Kayla Collins stood beneath a black umbrella held by a stranger who had appeared from nowhere. A young Marine in dress blues, his face streaked with rain or tears. He saluted Ethan's grave as the car disappeared into the storm. Margaret closed her eyes. For the first time in 30 years of public service, she didn't know what came next. And for the first time, that didn't terrify her. The rain followed them all the way to Fredericksburg, washing the Virginia countryside clean.